Charlie Walters with CW3 Public Relations. How y'all doing?
And I'm David Off with Impact24 Public Relations.
We're very excited to be co-hosting for the first year this 9th annual Behind the Music panel together. I can't believe it's been 9 years. Has anybody been to the Behind the Music panel before? Okay, that's good. And I'm sure we have a, but who's a big fan of TV and film music?
Today we will be talking to 7 musicians who created the music for some of your favorite fantasy and fiction projects across television and film. A huge thank you to the various networks and studios for their support. That's FX, 20th Century Fox, USA, NBC, the CW, Warner Brothers, Netflix, and Lionsgate Films.
And before we start, we're going to take a quick look at the work of these incredibly gifted composers and talented moderators. Reminder for you guys that there's no recording while we're showing these clips because you're going to see some fun exclusive stuff too. But feel free to record the actual panel, take photos, and post on social media using the hashtag that's up there, hashtag Behind the Music. Warning, some of the clips may contain graphic content, which hopefully nobody minds, and spoilers, which I know nobody minds. So enjoy the clips. Blood and Sand in the upcoming Cult of Chucky. He also has not been at Comic-Con since 1993, so it's been almost 25 years. And he has a group that he hosts with a lot of horror composers that he calls decomposers, which I think is really funny. So let's welcome Joseph DeLuca. Next, his work has been seen in some of your favorite CW fantasy shows, including The Flash, Supergirl, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and Riverdale. Please welcome Blake Neely.
People, a show that was equally funny and thought-provoking, and also won an Emmy for his music to Amazon's The Snowy Day, Kris Bowers. For NBC's Golden Globe and Emmy-nominated series This Is Us, and Hulu's upcoming The Runaways, Siddhartha Khosla. He's a 4-time Emmy winner and the composer for long-running fan-favorite series 24 and Homeland. He won the Emmy last year for Jessica Jones, which was Marvel's first Emmy win ever, and he's scoring the upcoming Inhumans, Callery. Composer of Mr. Robot, as well as American Horror Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, and Ryan Murphy's latest anthology series, Feud, Bet and Joan, which just earned him his 3rd and 4th Emmy nominations, Quayle. Fargo, and just received his 3rd Emmy nomination for the series. He crafts the soundscape of the mutant-filled world of Legion and has composed for HBO's The Night Of. Please welcome Jeff Russo. Season 2, you'll recognize him from The Get Down, and you'll recognize both of them from the fan-favorite hit series Legion. Please give a warm welcome to Rachel Keller and Jeremie Harris.
Hi there. Thanks, Jana. Thanks. It's so wonderful to be here with Jeremie and all these wonderfully talented composers and musicians. They've all worked on very, very different projects and played such integral roles in placing the tone and the emotional flow of their shows. I'm really excited to hear about their challenges and their approaches and how they elevate their shows.
Definitely. And what makes this panel so interesting is that all of our panelists had to construct music for completely different worlds. Some even had to create scores for multiple shows in a shared universe. And sometimes the music of the show, probably not to you all, but to other people, can be overlooked. So it's great that we're going to be able to talk to them about their creative process, and I can't wait to hear from all these musicians. So,
Yeah.
let's get started. All right, so anyone, tell us about the projects we just saw and your creative process prior. Jump right in.
My name is Kris Bowers, and I work on Dear White People. And it was actually, this is my first television show that I worked on scoring. And it was an incredible process to be able to have as much freedom as just the show's creator and efforts gave me work.
I'm on vacation right now because there's a lot of shows to do. And so I take this time to drink cocktails, eat guacamole, and hang out. But I love going to Comic-Con. These shows are really have become a huge part of my life, and until I did these type of shows, superheroes and comic books, there wasn't a following of music, and now it's become, you guys kind of know what we do, which is great, which is like all of it.
I'm Siddhartha Khosla, and I scored This Is Us, and Marvel's new Hulu series called Runaways. What was the question on process?
Creative process, how do you approach the project?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank all of you guys because, we're in this incredibly special time in television and this golden age where there's so much wonderful work and all these people around people. I look up to all of them. And you guys are a huge part of that process, just walking to the train station. It's like how many passionate fans there are. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here, so thank you for that, first of all. As far as the process, I always compose from my gut and my soul, and I present that first. I don't try to sound like something that isn't me, and half the time I ever do that, so.
I'm Sean, Callery. I composed for Jessica Jones, which is season 2 is coming up. I think you're gonna like it. I think it's very good. I started on 24, and that was when right during 24's run, social media started happening, and it was the first time I started to hear from fans. And it was exciting and a little scary because the fans know quite a lot about the shows, especially about the music. And there were a couple times I was asking questions about my approach to a scene and about Jack Bauer's life. And I mean, these were such deep, cool questions, and they were way beyond me. I was just trying to get the show done. So I was really happy to meet fans. And this is sort of the physical manifestation of that. So it's always a blast to be here. And my process is really kind of piggybacking off the Sid's. It's just when you sit down and look at a show, as you all do, just pay attention to what you feel the first time you're watching it, and then we try to apply that to the writing of the score, which is in conjunction with the direction and the acting and all the other great stuff that came before us. Anyway, thanks for having me.
My name is Matt Quayle, and I write the music for Mr. Robot. And the show too, so I'm very excited. Also, American Horror Story, which they just said yesterday is going to be cult for this season, so I'm excited about that. And you mentioned that composers often get overlooked, and I think that's kind of true, but it's also kind of like when we're really doing our job, when we're helping to tell the story, like sometimes you just don't notice that we're there. If we're not there, you're going to notice it. But, ask some people, what do you think of the music? And there was music in that show. And we're just there, doing our job, helping to tell the story. So, I'm happy to kind of get a little attention at something like this.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I wrote the music for Legion, season 1, and radio music. The process for me is always just I start with a good, healthy dose of self-doubt, and then that moves on to self-loathing. And once I've gotten past that, I sit down and then get to the place where these guys are talking about, which is what's my instinct in terms of how does it make me feel. You know, one of the most important things I think about music in general to any piece of narrative is that we represent the heart of the show. I would like to believe that. And the way to tell a story is always from an emotional point of view, and I think music really helps to do that. So I try to find where that is and then do that, and then sometimes say, no, this is wrong, let's do it the other way, and then sort of try to figure out that. But that's really the process that I like to begin.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joe LoDuca, and what I wanted to thank all my colleagues here. You guys are doing tremendous work, and I'm inspired by all of it. I was telling Jeff I had a chance to see the pilot of the Legion on the plane coming over yesterday, and it inspired a really weird dream. It's the coolest stuff, and I think the whole idea is that when the stories are good, the music in some ways writes itself because we are so inspired. And I think the most important thing, I think we're all storytellers at heart, and it just happens that our way of expressing ourselves is music. Because this is a Comic-Con audience today, there's something I wanted to show you. I've been doing this for quite a while now. I attended Comic-Con the last time was in 1993 when it was one convention hall Bruce Campbell hosted, and I just witnessed for the Army of Darkness. And I was awarded the Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Composer. It's a block of wood that looks like it was cut with a chainsaw, with Thompson's water seal, a little piece of brass tubing. There used to be a nail polish for a little blood on the top of it, so I'm very proud of this. I never show it, but it seemed appropriate. As you may or may not know, Ash vs. Evil Dead is a continuation of that song on Stars. And writing for librarians. Other projects of interest this year is Chucky 7, The Cult of Chucky, which has been a lot of fun. The director's really great. And look, it's I think the interesting thing for all of us, most of these composers are very, very busy working on multiple shows at once. And that is a really interesting challenge when you're talking about process and time and all of the things that have to go on to be able to keep yourself open and fresh and inspired and energized. And so hats off to these guys.
Hey Jeff, you've had the privilege of, well, we've had the privilege of working with you. Maybe you've also had the privilege of, we've had the privilege of your music enhancing both of our performance. Do you have a favorite scoring moment? Maybe one of ours.
As a matter of fact, yeah, two things come to mind. So the clip that they played of you and Dan was a piece of music called David and Sid, and it was the love theme for the two of you. And that was a true joy to write because I got to really sort of dig into the emotional content. But in episode 7, we did that silent movie, and I got to do the whole bolero takedown with all the electronics and stuff, and that to me was just something that was pretty unique in terms of what I had ever done before. So that I think was probably one of the most fun times I've ever had working on a piece of music and working on a show, especially if everybody was involved. It was the whole cast. It was everybody was involved in everything, and I would say that.
Awesome. You answered that question very well. So, Kris, I heard through the grapevine that when you got Dear White People, you were sent the show's Bible and a 50-song playlist.
Yeah, actually it was like 80 songs.
80 songs. So, was that inspiring, intimidating? Did it help you get into the world a little easier?
It was interesting. So when I was asked to demo for the show, they gave me, like Jeremie said, a show Bible, a script for episode 1, and a Spotify playlist of 80 songs that range from like Riverdale to Daft Punk to Sonny Rollins, and they just asked me to write something based on all that. Yeah, in 24 hours. It was like, you know, a life usually. And what was interesting though is that as I tried to fuse all these different things together, I wrote this like Feud, but it was with electronics, and it had this like 808 subsection, and it had like jazz improv over it and all this stuff. But then the music we wrote for the shows would be even way different than that. I mean, they were writing mostly traditional classical music and traditional jazz music. But I think that whole little test, if you will, was for them to see how versatile I was with all these different worlds and how much I could understand it.
Joe, coming to you. You are returning to Evil Dead 25 years later. How did you enjoy it? And were there any challenges?
Well, on the pilot, Sam Raimi directed, so it was an opportunity for us to get back together again. And it was interesting to see that even though time had passed since the previous Evil Dead movie, we still have the same shorthand. As my colleagues will mention this, when you work with the same people, sometimes you can complete each other's sentences, you have a vocabulary and a history of how you handle certain situations in a story, and so it was very easy, very natural. It was fun. He came to the scoring sessions, which is really a thrill. But sometimes on TV, you can have a scoring session and nobody's around, which is fine. But it's always fun when the people who are involved and invested, for example, do something like that. It was great. It's great fun.
Mac, so you worked on Mr. Robot and Feud, two very different things, antisocial hackers and then Hollywood starlets. So was your approach different, or is your approach always the same, regardless of the project, how different it is?
Well, I haven't really mentioned this anywhere before, but basically Mr. Robot is just Feud played backwards. And pitched down a little bit. And a little echo. So, it's the trick. I don't want the producers to know because they think I wrote more music. No, I mean, they are, like, to me, kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. It's like electronic, dark, aggressive score for Mr. Robot, and then this 1960s orchestral, old Hollywood sound for Feud. And, at the core, I think the scores, they're doing the same thing. They're helping to tell these stories. They're doing it in different ways with different sounds. And I felt very comfortable in the world of Mr. Robot, very comfortable being paranoid and tense and stressed out and dark and very afraid. And Feud was not that, and it was a little challenging. It was a whole new world for me, but also exciting. I love the music from that era, and so it was just great to get into that world and get to play around with orchestral 1960s, groovy, jazzy drama. Fun.
Sean, next for you is Marvel's The Inhumans. Maybe it's not good, it's just Inhumans. What can you share about it? How does it differ from Jessica Jones?
Well, Jessica Jones is kind of a 5 to 7 piece jazz, kind of march sound, and Inhumans involves a 70-piece orchestra. It's a very big show. I was told about this preview that was played yesterday. I don't know how many saw it. It's just it's a show about a royal family that lives on the moon. I mean, that's a pretty normal thing. But there's this, I think all Marvel stories, at least the ones that I've had the privilege of working on, there's always so many relevant storylines that pertain to things today, and so there's reasons why they have to come to Earth, and it's probably the biggest thing I've ever worked on, and I was really privileged to be asked to do it. I'm still in it. I'm still doing it, and the IMAX film, the combo IMAX is going to be September 1st. But the answer to your question in the shortest possible way is Jessica Jones. Her world is like 5 square blocks of New York City, and the Inhumans is the moon and the Earth and many other places. So I'm kind of still on the journey, to be honest with you. So I do hope you enjoy it.
And Sid, within the same vein, you have This Is Us, and then you have the Runaways. real life family dynamic and then superhero family dynamic. Was there any difference for you in your approach?
Yeah, I mean, for This Is Us, you know, it's a very organic score. It's me on an acoustic guitar and making every sound I make on the score within 5 feet of me. You know, like the percussion here is my wooden table that I work off of, and I sing on the score. And there's a little cello, and so it all kind of happens, you know, very organically. These instruments that I'm very comfortable with. And then Runaways is a completely synthetic score. I mean, it's all analog vintage synths that I was able to dust off and finally use. It's exciting. I have a Juno 106 and an Oberheim that I used to score the entire show. And at the core, though, it's, you know, I think it's very similar to what Max said, that you're ultimately just I'm doing the same thing but using different instruments. And I know it sounds very simplistic to say that. As I'm saying it, it sounds really stupid. But it really is. And I think for me too, I rely a lot on melody to drive my score. A lot like folks, because I'm a songwriter too, and that's kind of what I think. And so in both of these scores, you know, there's melodic themes that kind of lead in and out of the episodes. So I'm just playing on different instruments.
Blake, you work on a lot of different CW shows. Sometimes these have crossover episodes. So how do you, how do you deal with like those palettes of each show within those special crossover episodes?
They're actually my favorite. I hope you guys like watching the crossovers. They're my favorite ones to score. When it started, I kind of had to learn how to do it. It's not as hard as it sounds. It's basically a mashup of tunes. You pick someone's sound palette like Flash and play Supergirl's theme in it, and suddenly you have a crossover. And they think you're a genius, and then they say, let's do it next year, but with all 4 shows. And those are fun, and but when we started these shows, Greg Berlanti said that there would be crossovers when Flash started. So it was designing the, you know, thankfully one's not a country score and one's not a jazz score. That would be a weird mashup. But I got to design the sound worlds to be where we did cross them over. So there was thought into that. And now if they cross Riverdale over into the superhero shows, that'll be a lot of fun.
So Jeff and Mac, you've worked with, you know, the same showrunner on a bunch of different projects. Is that something that helps you, or do you find yourself kind of like slipping back into the same old tricks, man? Like, I have to switch this up. This is gonna sound like the other show, or or is it helpful?
I don't think I had to worry about Fargo sounding like Legion. But yeah, I think that it makes the job definitely easier. We were talking about having a second hand, language, like just a really easy way to communicate with each other. And it's gotten to the point now where Noah can look at me and say, that one thing you did that one time, do that thing over here, and I'll know exactly what it means. And so it does make it easy to collaborate, and easy to communicate with me what he wants, and me back to him what I think I'm interpreting what he's saying. So yeah, I think that thing in general definitely makes it certainly easier.
Yeah, it's a trust thing. Too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, with Ryan Murphy, who has created American Horror Story, American Crime Story, Feud, each of those shows, they're very different tone, and each season is like a completely different story. So it's like we're always like starting over, and that just gives us a chance to kind of reinvent it, come up with new sounds, and hopefully they're all sounding a little different.
Did any of you else want to piggyback on that?
Well, I think the shorthand thing, it's very helpful. I mean, you've been working with someone that long, but there are 3 terrifying words that are shorthands that they tell me, and it's, we want it to be cool, we want it to be modern, and we want it to be iconic.
But you forgot edgy, and elevating the material.
Never say no. Never say you can't do something. Always figure out how to do it. If somebody said, somebody asks you to do something, just figure it out. Never say no.
It's not about necessarily what you can do, but it's about how fast you can do it.
I think when you're playing back your music for a showrunner and you go, I don't know about this, you just look at it like, cool, even though inside you're miserable. You hide the pain and the fact that your night is just beginning.
They have one. Wait to see how they go before I ask them.
I can't like that. Never sit next to Sean on the panel.
How about that cue of the hero? I mean, did anybody cry in this audience? That was
I think for me the most important thing is investing in the relationships you have with the people you work with. And This Is Us and other shows I've done with Dan Fogelman, it's because we know each other so well. I have a window into his soul, and so when I'm working on his shows, I don't feel like I'm actually scoring the scene. I'm scoring the reason why the scene's there in the first place. And so that's coming from my relationship with him. So I mean, for me, it's investing in those relationships.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everybody's statement so far. And for me, I guess also just being a good person, just because I feel like most of the work that I've gotten has been because of friends. These relationships that we have with friends are just genuine friendships that can turn into.
So you're saying you're a good person?
Just say it, you're a good person. You just tell him that
He is. He's such a nice guy.
I learned and try to remember, trust your instincts, because I get you can be pretty intimidating and lock you up as a writer to be given these characters who have decades of fans. So just trust your instincts. And somehow that Superman new theme comes out.
Well, I don't know if I have anything new to add, but I agree with the never say no part. Everybody that stands before you is here today because they said yes, no matter how terrified they were when they said it. And that to not absorb the anxiety of the person who is commissioning you. Sometimes you're working on a scene that they didn't get right, or the performance didn't get right, or the shoot didn't go well that day, and you might be going back 6 or 7 times, and it's not your fault.
Great. Do you want to ask your question?
Hi, my name is Emily. My question is going to be for Blake. So I'm an Arrow fan, and I wanted to know, how did you come up with the Olicity theme that was first, I think, aired in 320?
The Olicity theme. Yeah. And why Twitter can be your not best friend. Well,
Pretty good.
no, Olicity, for you guys that haven't watched Arrow, there's Oliver, Queen is the Green Arrow, and then Felicity. And they were a big love item. And might be again. I don't know. How I came up with it.
Feel free to give some spoilers.
I'm not sure how I came up with it, but I know it's a very specific theme, and I woke up one day and I checked Twitter like we should not, and someone said, "Oh my God!" There were like my Twitter had blown up. There were like 100 messages saying, "You betrayed us. You used the Olicity theme on Oliver and his new girlfriend." I'm like, "Oh my God, did I?" Raced to the studio. I'm like, man. I mean, I do drink when I write, but I'm like, there's no way. I'm very careful with themes, and so I checked, and I hadn't, and I told them, piano and strings doesn't equal a theme. It's actually, and then I get this, "Oh, we're sorry. So it is a very special theme to me, and it's also a, oh my God theme. Because when I hear Olicity, I think of that morning. But I don't remember how I came up with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, what can a filmmaker do to empower you guys to do your best work? What can a filmmaker do to empower you to do your best work?
Trust and confidence.
Yeah, not micromanage. like trying to micromanage music can cut into the confidence of a composer, I think broad strokes and emotional speak helps. And also to try to be specific about what they want and to know what they want. I'd say knowing what they want is a big artifact.
Yeah, to not be afraid to talk to us about, in their language, about what they're looking for, not to have to be talking in musical language, to be just like, oh, it needs to be more sad, or it needs to be more aesthetic, or they want to know the musical lingo. I get that a lot. They tell me, I don't know anything about music, but let me just tell you, just talk.
And one thing I'll add to that is to not tempt stuff. Like, I mean, because sometimes the temp can be right, and in my experience, more often than not, the temp is wrong. And it also doesn't allow you as the composer who's creating the sound and the vibe of the music of the show to have a clean slate. I do best when I just read the script and I hear something, and I present it. And then that becomes a template that it can tempt with possibly. So I think it's less temp.
It's just a great question. Just to check, I know that on Jessica Jones, the showrunner is sort of the person that is the brain trust. They kind of hold the cards of the show, and they kind of impart their creative vision to you. And they, for me, act as a buffer to the people above them. So when I started writing the theme for Jessica Jones, she let it marinate, if you will. In other words, we let it kind of marinate before we sent it on for others to weigh in. And in so doing, she sort of provided a kind of a sandbox to plan a bit for the sound of the show. And people were kind of thrown a little bit by the noir kind of sandbox, but then they got, it's soaked in. It kind of soaked in, and they liked it. So a strong showrunner protects you when you're trying to find a good, unique sound for the show.
Great, next question.
Hi, my name is Sean, and this is a question mostly for Jeff. The opening of Legion is just a mesmerizing scene with the song Happy Jack. And I know it's a different job selecting the existing music, but what challenges are there in working around or with existing music in a show?
Well, in Legion, it posed the most problems. Problems is probably not the right word to use, but it was complicated because there was music that I had written already, and then there were songs that were going to be chosen, so I had to go back and rework music in order to get in and out of a lot of songs, because we did use probably more songs in the first episode than we did in later episodes. But Noah is very meticulous about how he chooses songs and what he wants and how he wants things to sort of go in and out of that. So it did pose a bit of a problem that needed to be solved, but we got through it, and I had to sort of rework stuff in and out of music, and then there were places where we changed the song based on the fact that getting out of it was weird.
Thank you. You're welcome. I think we have time for you to say it. One more question?
Sorry.
That's the last question?
5 minutes. 5 minutes each of you.
If we could answer that, then we'd have less gray hair, that's for sure.
I'll start. I am wearing Superman underwear.
And I traveled with him on a train this morning, and he's telling the truth.
It's a very difficult question. What you're asking is a very difficult thing to answer, right? So, it's having somebody say "be iconic" is sort of like, come on, really? Like, you can't just be iconic. But always try to just understand that if you were writing a song, the music is always going to be secondary to the dialogue, to the lyric. And in the because what we do, it's like we're writing the music for a song and the dialogue is the lyric. So the lyric is always the king, and let the king do its thing, and always just be supportive and don't get in the way, and yet thread in that thing that pulls at your heartstrings, or makes you feel tense, or makes you feel afraid, or makes you feel scared, or whatever it is. And it's a delicate dance, and it's a delicate balance, and I'm not sure how we do it, and these guys do it really, really well. So.
The other thing is you pick your moments for the big theme to stand out, and you hope you have some of those. And but it's funny what can become iconic. I mean, I hear lots of people go, "Oh, I love that whoop sound in the Arrow." Yeah, but what about the theme? So anyway.
Yeah, it's a slalom course. You really have to navigate all of that. And as far as the song and the theme, you're trying to do your best. You're trying to come up with your best melody, your most memorable melody. And if you're fortunate enough to be on a hit show and people are going to hear it endlessly, it's going to work its way as an earworm and become iconic.
And for me, I sleep on stuff a lot. Like I'll take a lot of naps, and it's actually work. I try to tell my girlfriend that she thinks I'm just taking naps.
I use that.
But I usually like write something and then like walk away from it, and then if I can still remember it, or if I still feel good about it, if I come back to it, I don't like hate myself, then it's probably somewhat decent. Yeah.
One of my first jobs before composing was I was a sound effects editor for the TV show Deep Space Nine. If you ever watched Deep Space Nine. And I had to design, one of my first jobs was to design the sound for this morphing character named Odo. Right? And there were just times when the sound effects told a story and was featured. I learned when I was on the mixing stage, knowing I wanted to be a composer, but the music sometimes was the primary storytelling element. To speak to Blake's point about, there's some big moments that can happen in the music. And then sometimes the sound effects really took the moment. And again, not to be touting the good showrunners, but the really good showrunners know exactly